Hello and welcome to Boring Dad Gaming, where today we're going to be taking a look at Football Manager 2022, where we're in the process of working through the various positions that we're utilising to play in a Gegenpress system and identifying ideal players who are going to perform that role. So today we're taking a look at the Defensive Midfielder position. Really, the Defensive Midfielder is literally that. It's a player who's going to have a very more defensive outlook. He's not going to be a playmaker. He's going to sort of shield the back four, in particular the centre-backs, as our full-backs are going to be pushing forward. Someone who quite often is going to probably lead our pressing because he's going to sort of activate when the opposition's striker or attacking midfielder is on the ball. It's the defensive midfielder who's going to be that sort of first point of trying to disrupt the attack and win back possession. Now, the modern defensive midfielder is quite different to what it used to be in the past. If you think about someone like Mascherano, it's very much a destroyer type role. Whereas the modern day midfielder, if you think about more like Fabinho, how he plays at Liverpool, he has that defensive role, but also, you're looking at someone who's quite technical as well, someone who's, fairly good at passing and perhaps even, starting with not necessarily being a playmaker, but making sure that he can reach the players ahead of him to really get those attacks started. So if you think about Mascherano, and you think about someone like Pirlo, who was more who would sit in the same position, but would be very much more of a playmaker, someone who'd be sort of spraying the passes, and often Xabi Alonso is another one. Whereas the modern day DM is someone perhaps who blends those two classic archetypes. So someone who takes the best of a Pirlo and a Alonso and the best of a Mascherano. So you're fierce in the tackle, but you can pick out a pass and use the ball intelligently, as well as just disrupting attacks. So we're going to take a look now at a player who I think combines those very well. Probably the best in the game, and that is Joshua Kimmich at Bayern Munich. 26 years old, so sort of just coming into his prime really, and already he's very good at this role. And let's take a quick look at the attributes that mark him out in particular for this. So for me, probably the most important thing to primarily consider for this role is someone who's got very high stamina and good strength. Now Kimmich at 12 is perhaps around the sort of minimum kind of stat for strength that I would consider for this role, but it's fine. But 12 plus is probably what you're looking for, and at 20 stamina he's ideal for that. Marking and tackling is the next, as this is primarily a defensive role, and again Kimmich at 13 and 13 is good. I probably wouldn't, if you're talking about an elite team like a title or a Champions League chasing team, then 13 for both is probably around the minimum you again accept. So feel free to look for more in that, but Kimmich is fine really with his other qualities. Now positioning, again a defensive role, so positioning means that he's going to look at the play ahead of him, sort of identify where the threats are, and when the opposition builds attacks, he's going to make sure that he's in the right position to deal with those as they develop. 14 again is good without being amazing. It's absolutely fine. Something like 12 plus would probably be good for this role. But then when we look at his teamwork and work rate, which is the next thing I think is important, he's very nearly the maximum there. He's someone who's really going to work hard for the team, and he's going to work hard for 90 minutes. Taking into account his stamina and natural fitness, he's going to do that twice a week throughout the season, 90 minutes a time, no problem at all. Another good thing to look at here, and it's something I perhaps shied away from slightly when looking at the box-to-box role, but it's aggression. This is a player who is going to, as the opposition attackers get on the ball, he's going to get right up in their faces and make sure that he's there winning challenges. So that's quite important. As is decisions and composure, which I've lumped together. And that's because decisions, as it sounds, is the ability to, in the heat of the moment, at the split second, make the right decision in each moment. And composure is the stat which means they have the sort of calm-headedness, the cool-headedness to make those decisions in the heat of the game. So they work very well together for this sort of defensive role. And it's quite an intelligent role. I think for a lot of these DMs that we're going to look for, a lot of the traits we're looking for are mental in nature. They need to be mentally very strong. Another thing, on a similar note then, the next thing to talk about is concentration. So a defensive role, unlike attackers who are possibly more involved in the game, someone who's more defensive just needs to, even though they may not be active on the ball a lot of the time. They need to be able to concentrate so that when they're going to be called upon to act, that they're able to do so. And that's something that's important for something like goalkeepers as well. Probably the position on the pitch that touches the ball least, but when they're needed, they're needed. So a high concentration stat just ensures that they're ready when they are needed. Now, if we're talking about the modern defensive midfielders, again, not quite playmakers, but needing to be technically proficient. So again, something like technique is important. And passing. I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily this level of passing is essential. Like 17, Kimmich is very, very good at passing. Certainly it could be lower, around the mid-teens, and it would be absolutely fine. But it means that when they win the ball, and they will if you've got a good player, along with the decisions and the composure, they've got the passing range to make sure they're sending the ball where it needs to be. Ideally, in our Gegenpress attacking system, to one of the players ahead of them. So like the inside forwards or the advanced playmakers or even the striker, if they've got a good passing range. And the last thing as well is, although it's last on the list, is just as important as all the others. It's bravery, which is a mentality where they're going to be the ones getting stuck in. They're not afraid to put their leg where it hurts, and not worry too much about how they're going to come off in any particular challenge. And determination, it's a bit nebulous determination, but it just kind of highlights how focused and intent they are in doing all the sort of actions on the pitch they're going to need to do. So they're not going to shrug off. Well, they're going to shrug off challenges. They're going to keep their head up. Things aren't going their way. And it's just a good stat to have to make sure that they're doing everything as well. So so Kimmich is probably the best in the game in this role at the start. He's a very expensive player to buy. He's at Bayern, one of the top teams in the world. He's one of their star players, but perhaps even the star player. 300 grand a week, so he's going to come with a bit high wage demands and probably cost around about £100 million to buy. So probably not someone you'll be able to buy unless you're a PSG or a City or someone like that, and perhaps not even then. So we're going to take a look at someone who is perhaps a bit more achievable in terms of value, but also a very, very good option for this role. So this is Declan Rice, and he's someone who's probably quite familiar to anyone who follows the English Premier League. He's one of the star players. I would say he's coming into one of the star players for the English national team. Definitely a star player for West Ham and probably their most prized asset. And at this point of recording, coming up to the last week of July in 2022, someone who perhaps is surprisingly still at West Ham because most of the top teams would love to have him on their side. So although he's a star player, he is at West Ham, which means in terms of wages, he's relatively modest at 60k per week. And in terms of value, I've seen campaigns where teams have bought him, maybe not at the start of the game, but it's sort of around 23, 24. They've bought him for around sort of the 50 to 60 million pound mark, which is quite reasonable. At the start of the game, looking at this, and that's possibly because he's starting to run down his contract. But at the start of the game, something around the 80 million pound mark would probably get him. We can look at, Man U are wanting to buy him in this campaign. So let's have a quick rundown. So he's got very good stamina and strength. He's bravery and determination is very high. His composure and decisions is very high as well, as is his concentration. He's reasonably aggressive without being a walking card. When it comes to aggression, Kimmich was probably very much on the high side of what I would look for, because you can have too much aggression. If you have a 20 out of 20 aggressive player, they're going to be a walking red card. So something like 13 is good without being too high, I think. Very good positioning. In fact, he can also play as a centre-back. I think that's where he originally broke through at West Ham, but as the years have gone by, and he's only 22, but as the years have gone by, he's maybe moved a bit higher up the pitch to sort of fall more naturally within this defensive midfield role. So that does mean he's got very good positioning, and his teamwork and work rate are also excellent. Marking and tackling, both very, very good for this defensive type of role. And first touch and technique also pretty good. And passing and vision are not bad. So he's perhaps a bit more towards the destroyer end of the role rather than the playmaking end of the role. So more of a Mascherano than a Pirlo. But he does have those qualities as well. So, he's very much a modern DM as far as I'm concerned. And following on from Declan Rice, we're going to take a look at Nicolo Rovella. And at the start of the game, he's on loan at Genoa, I think it is, from what's called Zebra. But that's just the game's version of Juventus. So in real life, he's a Juventus player on loan at Genoa. And he's a lot younger. He's 19 years of age, so more of a development option for this role. And in fact, because he's on loan, the earliest you'd be able to buy him is when his loan expires, so the end of summer 2022, so end of the first season. But he's reasonable in price. I mean, at that point, you'll probably be able to get him for around the 25 to 35 million pound mark, unless he has a fantastic loan, and maybe his value goes up then. And unlike Rice, he's perhaps someone who tends more towards the playmaking sort of role. In fact, if I put up a slide now of what he'll look like in a few years' time, you can see that, he develops very well, but is also very comfortable even playing a deep-lying playmaker type of role. But I prefer to go with the DM to add that sort of defensive solidity to the side. But at the start of the game, we can see the stamina and strength are good. Strength will increase. It's not huge, but it's all right. But mentally, he's very strong. Like aggression, as we said, this 13 is almost the sweet spot for aggression for me. But very high determination, bravery high, composure pretty good, concentration and decisions high. He works fairly hard for the team. He's not a Kimmich in that sense, but he'll more than pull his weight. Positioning decent, but the passing is very good. Technique is very good. The tackling very good, and the first touch very good. So he's quite a technical player. And in fact, if we look at his player traits, he's someone who will dictate the tempo. He's someone who's going to try long-range passes as well. So again, perhaps more of a Pirlo in that sense. The next player we're going to take a look at is Manuel Locatelli, who is also at Juventus. And he's someone who's perhaps more of a longer-term target within the game. He's very, very good. But as you can see here, he's on loan from Sassuolo, but joining Juventus permanently in 2 seasons' time. He's on a 2-season loan, so at July 23 he's going to join Juventus. So you're probably looking at a summer 2024 for this player, and I think I've got a slide here of what he'll look like at around that time. And as you can see, he's a very, very good choice for the role. So if we come and look again at how he is at the start of the game, you can see that his stamina and strength are good. His aggression is nice there. The bravery and determination very high. Composure, concentration, decisions, all very good. Passing, excellent, as is his vision. Work rate, teamwork. Positioning is good. So perhaps, again, someone who's a little more of a playmaker in this role. So his technique and first touch is excellent, as is his tackling. Marking is pretty high. So yeah, very, very good option for this role. And in 2024, you'll probably be able to get him, surprisingly, as it seems at the moment. I've seen him go for around about the £30 million mark. I guess a lot depends on how he's going to play in the intervening 2 years. Like, that value could go up if he's really, really good in that time. But if you're lucky, around £30 million, but probably at most around £50 million, I would think. Yeah, so a very good option there. And the last player we're going to take a look at is Ismael, is it Bennacer or Bennacer? I'm not sure. But he's another player who's based in Italy, which is perhaps not surprising as we're looking at these very more intelligent, technical, defensive type positions. So we're going to put up a quick slide of what he'll look at in a few years' time, and you can see he is another player who develops really well. And the good news is that he's one who's also available for a fairly reasonable price. His price tag's not too high here, as we can see. Anything between the sort of 20 and 30 million pound mark would get you this player. And we can see that he's, stamina and strength are good, bravery and determination high, composure, concentration, decisions all good, aggression in that sort of 13 sweet spot, teamwork, vision, work rate all very good, positioning good. He's very much a good all-rounder. Like marking and tackling good, technique, first touch, all around that sort of 14, 15 kind of mark, which will go up in the next few seasons because he is only 23 years old and he is going to keep developing. So he's another one who dictates the tempo. Comes deep to get the ball, which we kind of want as a DM, long-range passes, balls played into feet. So he is not the biggest. Like, some of these players we're looking at are very tall and good in the air. This isn't one of them. But then neither was Mascherano or Pirlo. I don't think height is necessarily essential in this role. And Bennacer, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that, is a very good option in this role. So yeah, so those are some of my suggestions. I hope this video was useful. If it was, then please feel free to hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel as well. And in the meantime, I'll see you next time for more FM22, where we're going to start working our way through the defence. Thanks very much for watching, and bye for now.